Hey, good morning or afternoon, wherever you are. Can everyone hear me? My name is Wallace Harmony. I am the Chief Growth Officer with Frost-Arnett, and I wanted to welcome everyone today for taking time out to learn more about what we feel like is the next step in revenue cycle, a new direction, something that we feel like will be exponentially successful as far as what we will be looking at in the years to come when it comes to healthcare revenue cycle. Just some quick housekeeping notes. Everyone's microphones have been muted and cameras off. We do hope that during today's presentation, if you have any questions that you would like to ask, go ahead and enter that into the chat area. I'll be monitoring those as Matthew goes through today with our presentation. We will have a time at the end of the presentation today to address those questions as well as any other questions you might have. Just a little bit before we get started about Frost-Arnett, for those of you that's not as familiar, Frost-Arnett, we're a 132-year-old full-service revenue cycle company. We're privately held, and we've been owned by the same two families for the last 89 years. So we're very proud of that fact. We're currently being led by the third generation of those two families. We began 132 years ago as a bad debt company and have evolved into a full service revenue cycle organization. Our product services begin before the patient arrives. We work in patient access all the way throughout the revenue cycle to the back end, obviously with self-pay and early out and bad debt and beyond. Also during the insurance process as far as either submitting your claims or following up. We work with we work with the entire journey for the patient when it comes to the revenue cycle, their experience with your facilities, and obviously your financial outcomes, how that patient is handled. So really, when we look at that, we offer world-class customer service to both you and your patients. And so today we're looking at PayJourney. And when we came up with PayJourney, we were thinking about that. We were thinking about your journey as a provider and the patient's journey and how those two intersect and how those can be affected for a more successful outcome in the end. PayJourney is what we feel like is the industry's first end-to-end patient financial concierge service. It's purpose-built to improve that patient and financial experience that I've been talking about while maximizing collections. You know, here at Frost, over the years, we've seen firsthand all the different inconsistencies that occur when patients deal with multiple staffs, whether that be internal, external, questions, and then that resulting in patient frustration and ultimately lower collections for your facility. So today we're going to be talking about what PayJourney and what that is and how we feel like we address those topics for you and how that we can improve those outcomes in the end. So today's thought leader will be Matthew Vecchio. Matthew serves as our Executive Vice President of Revenue Optimization. He joined our team in 2024. And working with Matthew daily, I can truly say that Matthew is a healthcare visionary. Every day he is really advocating for both the patient improvement of the patient experience and also the collection process. He has over his career championed over 100 revenue cycle and EHR implementation projects. He served with leadership roles in some of the top EHR vendors nationwide. He's also been in your seat. He's also worked as an operator, serving in several different organizations as revenue cycle director. So he understands firsthand some of the problems that you see as healthcare leaders, as well as your patient population, and giving him a firsthand perspective to the obstacles that you face and some of the things that happen along in your facilities. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matthew Vecchio. Matthew.
Thank you, Wallace. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see some new names and familiar names. Thanks for your time. I know it's very precious, and thanks to Wallace for the intro. That saves me some time and giving an intro. But if there's one thing I've learned in revenue cycle, it's there's always a problem to solve, and there's something new to learn. And I've been fortunate over the last 17 years to be surrounded by a lot of great thinkers, people that have been in the industry a lot longer than I have, and I'm really just trying to be a sponge and collect the knowledge as I go. And I think we have something really exciting to share with you today about PayJourney. Before we dive in and really present, I wanted to share a story that might resonate with each of you, because many minds have really come together over the last few years to develop this solution. From Frost-Arnett's 100 years of patient financial experience in collections, to business partners, to providers, and even patients. Yes, patients. There was a patient that was a few years ago. I was serving as RCM director for a health system in Greenville, Mississippi. It was during COVID. It was a struggling economy. The hospital was on the brink of closure. Staff shortages were real. The collection rates were plummeting. There was low morale, really all the things, right? But one evening, the first time I was traveling on site, I took a taxi ride that it would change my life. And in this taxi ride, this taxi driver picked me up from the airport, was going to take me to my hotel. It was 10 p.m. And he brought his whole family with him. He had his wife in the passenger seat, their little baby girl in the back seat. And when they asked what I was doing in Greenville, Mississippi, and I said, well, I'm working at the hospital, she let me have it. She said, I had just had a surgery at the hospital. I got a statement in the mail for $3,500. I've got insurance, but nobody told me up front just how much my surgery was going to cost me out of pocket. Nobody called me at any point to review my bill. I had to call in. The best they could offer me was a 2-year payment plan at $150 a month. It's been an awful experience. I can't afford that. Is there any other option? And I felt convicted. This was a family that was working overtime. And I told Cheryl, was her name, that I'm going to look into this and I'm going to find a way to make this right. So I went to the CFO the next day, and he gave me the green light to try and solve this problem, this patient financial experience and collection problem. And what we implemented there was some of the initial ingredients of what I'm about to present to you today about PayJourney. We pulled together early out digital engagement, patient financing, patient estimation. We optimized some patient access workflows to provide estimates and extended payment options for all patients with and without insurance. Because as you know, via the No Surprise Act, really the current mandate's just true self-pay and providing good faith estimates. But as we know, it's coming. To be able to provide all patients with estimates and being able to infuse digital engagement, financial navigation across the care continuum of that patient is really at the heart of PayJourney. Anyway, we called Cheryl back up, put her on an extended multi-year payment plan through our non-recourse patient financing. She was pleased with that. And over the next year, we ended up nearly doubling our collection rate and improved the patient experience in the community. I'm sure all of us here have had some encounter with a similar story to this, maybe even personally as a patient. And I think that's what makes PayJourney great. It's about harnessing this collective experience of all of us, patients, providers, vendors, to really solve this problem of payment confusion and low collections once and for all. And with that, we'd like to dive in and kind of share a little bit more about PayJourney and what we're doing here to solve this problem. All right, so what are some of the industry trends that we're seeing? Well, first of all, there's a cost problem. There's been a 230% increase for patient out-of-pocket costs in the last 10 years. 81% of self-pay net revenues are going unrecovered. 20% of payment arrangements are defaulting, and 20 to 30% of that ATB, the guarantor ATB, or really the entire ATB, consists of patient responsibility balances. Of those patient responsibility balances, we've done some data studies, and really the patients whose balance is over $500 typically accounts for less than 20% of the volume of patients, but really over 80 to 90% of the AR dollars. And so that's important because it's practical. What we're doing with PayJourney is really practical and achievable to achieve financial results and experience results. Kind of talk about. All right. 40% of Americans are unable to pay a $400 emergency visit with cash, savings, or credit card per the Federal Reserve. From United First Bank, less than 70% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. This is the one that really stands out to me the most here. 50% adults are putting off medical or dental care due to costs, with 1 in 8 saying their medical conditions getting worse as a result. And that's from Kaiser. It's pretty terrible. 30% of GoFundMe accounts are related to medical liability, and 15% are really faced with serious challenges and financial challenges paying medical bills per the CDC. This is creating a vicious cycle in these communities that are really most felt in some of the lower demographic, the really struggling economies, but we can still see it across the country. There's obstacles to payment. This lack of transparency and consistent engagement creates friction right from the beginning. Patients are surprised by large balances and estimate changes. If you told them, something was going to cost this and it ended up costing that, it's just another reason not to pay. Traditional payment plans are largely unaffordable. There's cash flow woes, right, that are kind of a result of this. Hospitals struggle to collect cash. There's administrative burden and staffing shortages, the AR and bad debt increases, and bad debt's bad at the end of the day for a reason. And now that there's a fragile regulatory environment making it even more difficult to collect bad debt, collection rates are going to start plummeting, and patients can still feel ghosted if the provider didn't do enough prior to sending you to bad debt, right? If you weren't being transparent enough, if you weren't aligning expectations, if you weren't engaging the patient to their level of satisfaction, it's just giving patients more reason not to pay. And if you're just going to send them to bad debt, it's just creating this low financial confidence in the community. And this is a very real thing that I've seen across the country in a lot of the different states I've been to, where there's a sense of low financial confidence in that community, and then they can't prioritize no-shows or prioritize their health care because no-shows start increasing. Health isn't prioritized like we saw with Kaiser. So research is showing that the patient financial experience really impacts the prioritization of healthcare. And so there's a direct link there, not just to your margins and your bottom line, but also throughput and visit retention and loyalty and stickiness and branding of the services you're providing. And so the experience is pretty turbulent. And there's transparency confusion from the beginning. I don't know if you ever tried to train staff on on calculating benefits, but even to staff, reviewing patient benefits is still confusing. So it's not only confusing to the patient, but insurance and calculating benefits and estimates is still confusing to the staff as well. And they're largely inaccurate, although we've got a good estimator tool we can talk about. But even estimate accuracy rates over 85% are considered good these days, and that's just unacceptable. Front end and back end staff are usually different teams. And I already hear a lot of you saying, well, of course there are, right? Because you got patient access and you got back end collections, different components of the assembly line of the revenue cycle, different requirements and workflows. But still, from the patient experience, those are 2 different teams, maybe 3 different teams, maybe 4. And so until today, there's really not one team that sticks with that entire patient throughout the entire care journey, unless you're a financial counselor, but they can't be everywhere. Staffing and affordability issues are very real up front. Money talk is tough. Financial conversations put a lot of stress on patients and staff at time of service. They're not really trained and equipped to have financial conversations. Staff aren't, unless you're a financial counselor, unless you've really harped on some point of service scripting. Across the country, I think the feel is money talk is tough, really wherever you are. Patients feel ghosted. Sometimes by the time the patient leaves for their visit, they're not being engaged by anybody from the facility until that statement comes in the mail. And so what about all the middle ground? What about engaging patients during the insurance adjudication timeline and informing them of claim statuses, or that the estimate that they may have been given at the beginning had changed? None of that's really happening right now in the industry because, the revenue cycle is very focused on capturing as much cash from the insurance, reducing DNFB, reducing error days, reducing denials. There's a lot of other things that are kind of distracting us from engaging the patient during that time. So there's going to be statement surprises due to the lack of transparency, affordability, education, engagement that preceded it. And kind of finally, what we're seeing in the industry is this financial clearance experience issue, both on the patient and the provider side. Even if you give the patient their estimate out of pocket, it's going to look like Greek to them. And we intentionally put this in Greek, by the way. If you're charged, the estimate procedure charge $5,000 for the surgery, maximum allowable is $4,000, your deductible is $3,000, you haven't met any of it yet, co-insurance is 20%, it's going to be $200 plus a $250 copay. That's why your estimate out of pocket is $3,450. They're not going to understand that, right? And on top of that, providers have a ton, patient access team have a ton of things on their plate and financial clearance for scheduled outpatients. Got to make sure to get that procedure order with the CPT and diagnosis, the appropriate diagnosis, as we know that can be a challenge. Demographic securement, FAP screening for true self-pay, insurance eligibility resolution. Does the procedure meet medical necessity? Does it require a prior auth? Does it require a referral? Are you scanning for additional coverage? Are you, calculating benefits, reviewing benefits with patients? Are you incorporating, is that procedure provider in and out of network? Are you generating and then calculating the estimate for patients with and without insurance? And then you're going to call the patient and discuss all this with them. It's a ton on the plate for patient access teams. And it's really impacting denials, avoidable denials. So where does this all lead? Enter PayJourney. Really as Wallace was saying, PayJourney is the industry's first patient financial concierge designed to improve the patient and provider financial experience while maximizing collection results. The two are not at odds anymore. We found a way to crack that. We found a way to provide exceptional experience and maximize collection results. Now, how are we going to do that? We're going to assign one team of financial navigators to your patients on the front end that are going to be with your patient every step of the way, so that by the time that patient receives their first statement, they shouldn't have any more questions. That's obviously a lofty goal, and that's not going to be 100% of the time, but at least that's where PayJourney is marching towards. That's our goal. That's our objective. We want to make sure that, by the time the patient reaches the early out cycle, we've done our job in engaging them. We've done our job in providing patient, extended payment options. We've done our job in aligning financial expectations, screening them for charity, and finding the appropriate financial strategy for them. And so how we do this, I'll pause here. But Wallace, I don't know if you want to jump in, if there's anything that kind of resonates with you around that, and then we can kind of dive into how we do this a little bit further.
Well, I really think the thing that stands out to me is just the consistency that we're talking about. It's the consistency from the patient experience. That's kind of what I referred to earlier, was when the inconsistencies that happen when there's multiple teams, both internal with your staff, or maybe it's external with a business partner. And so in this case, this gives more of a familiarity both on the patient's part and also from the provider part, because keeping in mind this is a first party product set that where we're really working on your behalf. And so the patient feels like the provider understands everything that's going on with their account.
Very good. Yeah, 100% agree with that. And we're going to dive into that concept of consistency and financial navigation here in just a sec. Thanks, Wallace. Kind of to Wallace's point, PayJourney is really about financial navigation. And how we do that through consistency, through education, through transparency. We can collect with empathy, right? But financial navigation is really at the backbone and the heart of PayJourney. And how we do that pre-service, we have a digital campaign and we've got a call center financial navigator campaign. And so the digital campaign, We use our digital engagement to provide the new visit estimate and the guarantor's prior balance. We can infuse payment plans and financing options to really make that as seamless as possible for the patient. And then we'll call pre-service the patient for scheduled outpatients and really start aligning financial expectations. Our financial navigators will introduce themselves as such. That we are your financial navigator that will walk with you every step of the way here to eliminate payment confusion and answer any questions you have. They're going to align the patient to the financial expectations. They're going to educate the patient on their benefits and the new visit estimate. That's also going to start having that conversation with the patient on the front end is going to take out a lot of ambiguity on the back end once they get their statement. So it's not just about providing the patient an estimate. It's having the opportunity to explain to them how we got to that estimate and educating them on their benefit. And I think that's a really important a component to why patients are confused on the back end. We're going to discuss payment options and patient financing and collect payments up front and as well as a card on file. At time of service, we have a time of service campaign to infuse and enroll patients into financing. Financial counselors can do that really easily for walk-ins, ED, post-triage, bedside, per EMTALA regulations. And then inpatients, we can work with the counselors, bedside as well to calculate an estimate and enroll them into financing. And when you do that, you're going to remove a lot of that financial stress that they know is kind of pending. If you start infusing patient financing, non-recourse patient financing, which we'll talk about here in a second, we can do a lot of that at time of service, and providers can also distribute a brochure about their financial navigation, because this is your service as a provider, something that we're providing, but this is still your concierge service that you're offering to your patients. Post-service, we can follow up with patients during the insurance adjudication timelines. And this is really important because we're teeing up, collection, really good collection experience in the early out campaigns. For the golfers out there, you don't want to hit your driver without a tee, right? You want to tee that golf ball up and hit that driver, off the tee box. The same principle here. We don't want to just jump into early out collections on the back end. We really want to give patients an updated estimate, kind of do early out a little bit earlier. We want to give them an updated estimate and say, hey, based on the contract management data that's in your patient accounting system, that's netting down that claim at the time of bill drop, we can engage them digitally and just share with them what their estimate is at that time. And we can engage them via courtesy call, especially for the high balances. Now, of course, we may not want to be able to call everybody, but at least in this campaign, starting with those high balances, like we talked about at the beginning, the 80-20 rule, the balances at over $2,000 are really a good sweet spot here because those usually make up about 7%, right, of the volume of patients, but maybe 50% of the AR. And so really making sure that those high balances, we can enroll them into financing, provide some billing expectations and timeline, and provide an updated estimate. And then all the standard things in early out, we can answer any remaining questions. We have digital engagement. We can enroll into financing and payment plans at that time and continue to screen for charity. There's a few core pillars that we offer, and we're just going to highlight some of these and dive into them. Our digital and front and back office really provide the digital platform or digital glue to increase touch points, providing real-time estimates of their patient balance across the payment journey. We infuse estimation. We can use your estimator tool. That's totally fine. If you're unsatisfied with your estimator tool, we also offer an estimator tool that uses automatic estimation from the scheduling event. We use contract data. We use historical claims and usage data to really make that as accurate as possible. And we can use this tool to provide estimate updates across the care continuum so that, again, by the time that the patient gets their final statement, they're not as surprised. The call center, our financial navigators are really that concierge service across the payment journey that calculate, they communicate, and collect triple C's of the patient balance. They can provide estimates pre-service, as we've talked about, or post-service in the early out space there as well. And Wallace, I don't know if you want to echo a little bit more, but around
Yeah,
early
I
out.
just want to interject real quickly right here is that I think most folks know Frost-Arnett, from our long history of being a bad debt collection company. But I just want to point out that, for over 40 years, we've been providing first party services to our clients, and that includes early out. So early out is something that we're very, very knowledgeable about. We have some advanced workflows talking about the digital strategies. And so it really goes hand in hand with taking that digital strategy pre-service and then that consistency, even from the messaging and texting and emails, things that you have that consistency from pre-arrival through the early out process.
Thanks, Wallace. Our non-recourse financing is infused really across the payment journey, whether it's early out or on the front end, but we offer up to a 5-year payment plan with 0% interest and no fees ever charged to the patient. We don't send patients that have been financed to bad debt either. We have a 100% acceptance rate for balances over 250, so no credit score required there. Well, it's a 100% acceptance rate for those balances over $250. We'll fully fund, those balances up to $15,000. So we'll zero out that account in patient accounting. And then based on our fee schedule and some of the discounts, based on propensity to pay, which we'll talk about, we'll determine for that patient what the fee is to the provider for taking on the risk to collect. But that's an excellent way to accelerate cash on especially high balance patients and provide that affordability of financial navigation. We offer a very unique advanced bad debt monitoring strategy for terminal bad debt. We'll leverage advanced analytics to identify positive patient financial life changes over time. So right now in the industry, most providers just have primary and secondary bad debt vendors. And once the secondary bad debt vendor returns the account to you as uncollectible, you most likely write it down to zero and maybe you sell it. We offer a strategy where we continue to monitor that account over time, and it's Medicare cost report compliant. And it's really the value when we treat Medicare and non-Medicare accounts the same. It's the value that we're getting, the collection opportunity in the non-Medicare accounts. And so that's a really unique strategy that yields about a 4 to 6% liquidation rate. We have a change management that we infuse into our PayJourney implementations to reduce your level of effort and maximize results, train staff, and a little bit more on this to come. So financial navigation, this is the point I'd like us to really focus on is financial navigation, because I feel like when I look in the industry, some hospitals are doing it, some have different versions and flavors. So what is financial navigation when we're talking about that? It's really consistency across that patient financial journey from pre-service to time of service to insurance adjudication to post balance after insurance engagement. It's making sure that our strategies and our campaigns are consistent. So the look and feel of digital engagement, the team that we are assigning that patient is one team that's consistent, maybe different members with different roles within that team, but there needs to be uniformity that really carries with that patient. Being transparent, then transparency is really our next kind of core aspect. Estimation, widely underutilized in the industry, right? Unless it's true self-pay and you're using it just for good faith estimates for the 300 shoppable services for compliance, we're of the opinion that estimation is still an untapped frontier. And we can use estimation on the front end for all patients with and without insurance to then be able to collect with empathy. Education is about educating the patient on their benefits and answering questions on their, why we got to the estimate that we did, being able to be a voice that the patient can call at any point in time if they needed help understanding why something costs what it did. And affordability, of course, our non-recourse patient financing really allows us to maximize the payment plan potential based on that patient propensity to pay. So pre-service, I'm going to fly through the next couple slides, but a couple concepts. Right now we're seeing in the industry kind of two teams, pre-service doing a lot, and we feel maybe a little too much is on the plate, and that's kind of the feedback we've been getting as well. Scheduling, obviously, they take all the inbound, outbound calls to secure the schedule. Pre-reg staff are really focused on insurance eligibility resolution, in and out of network determination, obtaining and verifying prior auth, referrals, medical necessity. But our approach is, we can help on the front end with the financial navigation to allow your staff more time to focus on some of the areas that really impact denials. And so if we start on the front end, we can double check benefits, referrals, and prior auths that your financial clearance team might already be doing. And then we'll go ahead and calculate that new visit estimate, the prior balance, and align financial expectations with the patient, give them a call, and really handle that financial navigation and introduce themselves as their financial navigator. So we kind of see pre-service as a three-core team approach of scheduling, pre-registration, and now financial navigation. And that then allows us the time that we need to really begin that relationship with the patient and make sure enough time's dedicated here without impacting those prerequisite core denial related steps. Okay, and so helping your team. Now, there's no box around this. We can be very flexible and do more or less, however really fits your business need, but that's just kind of out of the gate. Post-service, we use digital, paper, statement engagement, non-recourse patient financing, and our call center as really that financial navigation glue. Our digital engagement provides a uniform look and feel end-to-end, can reduce paper costs, increases payment volume and velocity, and enables patient convenience and self-service. They can enroll right into financing from our digital glue, our digital experience. And then, of course, patient financing. Some of our strategic outcomes here are to provide and really improve our collection rates for high balance patients, right? We can enroll anybody over 250, but really the sweet spot that we'll see is that maybe over $1,000, over $2,000 balances. That's really the collection rates maybe historically be low overall. That's really where we can reduce the AR and maximize collections. Increase patient stickiness and loyalty. When your brand, when you're offering up to 5-year payment plans through non-recourse financing and your competitor isn't, they're going to choose yours every time. Provides affordability, reduces bad debt and AR. And of course, our call center, providing that concierge support, increasing our collections through improved experience and payment options. I think this can't be overstated. When we improve the patient financial experience, the collections follow. Most patients want to pay. And we know that even the ones that struggle to pay, they still want the dignity of paying and they want to be able to do that. It's really about giving them the affordability to do that and making sure the experience is there so that if the experience is there, they're more likely to pay, right? There's less resistance from removing those barriers. Okay. All right. Let's just dive in a little bit further. Before I do, Wallace, is there anything that you want to kind of comment on that?
No, I think you covered it well. I really think it lays it out as to show what the patient experience looks like.
Awesome. All right, just real quickly, we really have best in class people. At the end of the day, it's people that run businesses. It's people that provide that empathetic patient financial experience. Digital is good to increase engagement touch points, but it's really our people that are going to drive that heartbeat of PayJourney. Our financial navigators, being able to align the patient to their financial expectations, educating the patient, collecting and using the most appropriate strategy, really being an extension of your policies and procedures. It's a little bit different everywhere we go, but our financial navigators, we can train them to really just be an extension of your SOPs, your policies, the way you treat medical necessity, pre-service versus, elective, all the things we can, and then on the back end, just being an extension of your business office in the early out space. We're really effective with payment plan management, reinvigoration of legacy payment plans, patient financing enrollment, charity assistance. We'll provide real-time performance measures and immediate follow-up surveys that we share with you, our analytics. One of the things that I absolutely love about Frost-Arnett is our analytics and how we use analytics to really tell a story about how we are improving the patient financial experience and collections, and nobody really does that better. Patient financing, we offer up to a 5-year payment plan for the entire household. No fees, no late fees ever charged to the patient, 0% interest, there's no credit checks, there's no score impact. It supports all credit profiles. It's 100% approval rates for balances over $250. We'll fully fund these balances in patient accounting up to $15,000. The fee structure depends on the propensity to pay, which we're about to talk to. The fee structure to the hospital, not to the patient. Patient's not getting a fee. They're just seeing an extended payment plan that goes usually well beyond what your in-house payment plans can offer. This really increases confidence in seeking care. For past, present, and future visits are easily rolled into these lines of credit. It's available for the whole guarantor, for the whole family. For the provider, we're accelerating 2 to 5 times more patient cash, especially in those higher balances. We're accelerating cash flow. We're funding within 2 days of the patient enrollment. It's non-recourse. We do offer a recourse version, but we don't recommend it. We always recommend non-recourse because of how it really reduces administrative burden. You don't have to worry about having a reserve on your books to manage those recourse backflows and then, put it back to bad debt. You don't ever have to worry about defaults. It's off your AR. We don't send them to bad debt once they have enrolled in a non-recourse patient finance plan. And so we really take on the risk to collect from that patient. And the fees that we, charge the hospital for that funding event include all of the costs to collect, merchant services, really the default risk. And so we try to maximize the collection potential to you while also covering some of our downside to go ahead and take on that risk to collect. Really an ease of enrollment. There's no pre-qualification step. Staff can easily enroll anywhere, anytime, pre-service, time of service, post-service. Our staff are very well trained in using our financing, so we can become your engine, so to speak, of maximizing financing enrollment to increase collections. But this is going to increase your patient stickiness and loyalty. It's a unique experience that your competitors may not offer. A little bit more on the seamless enrollment. Our payment plans, pre-service, time of service, and post-service are integrated into our digital engagement, into our texting and emailing screens. So the patient doesn't have to doesn't have to go to a portal to do all this. It's all happening right there on the screens themselves. Our staff can also enroll the patients on the spot. So your staff can at time of service, our staff can on the phone. There's no pre-qualification step. I keep saying that because other non-recourse vendors that are out there some of them require a pre-qualification step, which just kind of slows down the entire, experience, and it also reduces the overall enrollment potential. So we don't have to do that. Our terms are personalized to that patient's ability to pay up to 6 months. 100% of patients are approved for balances over $250, and we'll fully fund them up to $15,000. Now, what happens if your balance is over $15,000? No problem. That's just a partially funded event. We'll fund up to the 15, any remaining amount that's on that patient's balance. As the patient is making payments and is in good standing and working down their payment plan on the 15, we will then roll in monthly the remaining balance into that financed line of credit. We offer a really cool care card. I love this. It's really good for repeat customers and usage for longer care cycles. And so we will basically load up that card pre-service with the estimate, and that patient can just swipe at time of service as they would a credit card. But in the back end, it's consolidating that into maybe all, into one payment plan. So even if they come again and again and again, that patient just has one payment plan, and those additional estimates are being added to it into that payment plan. If the insurance ended up overpaying or underpaying, that would have then changed that estimate, no problem. We adjust those automatically on the back end. And so we can talk to you a little bit more about that offline as well. Here's an example. I think we have about 5 minutes left before we want to open this up for Q&A. Erica's a single mother of two. One of her sons just underwent treatment for patient responsibility balance is 3103, FICO score of 661. Her debt to income ratio is 25%. And she just received her statement via email and presented these three payment plan options just really seamlessly based on a lot of data, such as credit history, debt to income, outstanding balance. She's going to be presented these three offers. And this, again, these offers change based on that patient's propensity to pay, which really gives you and the patient the best option, if you think about it. And so she might select the 24 or the 36 month. This would be your yield, your net collection rate out of that original. So you're getting at least 70% collection rates on high balances. Now our portfolio typically averages an 70 to 80% collection rate on high balances though. And this is where if you think that's rich, I just ask you to, or if you think that's a high fee, I really ask you to, what are your collection rates now for high balances? Over $2,000. Guaranteed they're probably not 70 to 80%. Across the industry, we're seeing about 15 to 20% at best for those high balances. So this is a great way to, multiply your collection rate. And kind of to that point, here's a data study. As you can see on this ATB at this particular health system last year, it's 15,000 guarantors on this ATB for 10 million. The vast majority of the volume of those accounts were under 250, but only comprised of like that $250 balance, only comprised of 10% of the AR. Really, the sweet spot's this 250 to 15,000, and then really you'll see these collection rates start plummeting without financing. But if you use financing, even if we're enrolling 1 out of 4 patients into our financing across these balance buckets, we're nearly doubling, tripling, and for those really high balances, more than exponentially increasing those collection rates to overall get at least a solid double. And that's really the power of financing. Digital platform, we offer pre-service smart statements and estimates, point of sale processing. We embed our patient financing into it with business rules that are customizable to your liking. Maybe you want to make financing the default payment plan option for high balances. We can be really flexible there. We offer a portal, a digital wallet that's optional, but that's a really nice way for compiling some of the patient's other medical bills that they might have outside in the community. That's an optional feature. Staff initiated digital requests. When we're on the phone with patients, we can send them digital requests on command. We offer a great dashboard and reporting, integrate with your host EHR, and offer auto reconciliation, fast posting. We like to find the best, we like to utilize the best method for that patient. They can sign up and opt in. Of course, they have to offer opt-out digital engagement, but I love how we can offer opt-in strategies. So at time of service, that patient can opt into a specific tactic. But otherwise, we have default kind of back-end workflows that look at that use really machine learning to look at a variety of factors to send them either an email or a text or both, or just maybe if Paul, who's 80 years old, or 85, maybe Paul should just be getting paper. We offer a lot of those features. Embedded financing, really slick. How kind of back to the Erica example a few slides ago, who had I think 3103 balance. easily infuse that into the digital text or email experience. So they don't have to go out to a portal. They can select their finance payment plan right from the digital statement experience. And then finally, last but not least, and it is the kind of caboose of the revenue cycle, if you want to think about it, is our bad debt monitoring program. And this is for terminal bad debt. Really, it's a novel strategy, and we've done this for multiple health systems through our analytics partner with a lot of success here. But we use advanced algorithms to monitor the patient's propensity to pay over time. So really monitoring that payment journey way beyond what most health systems are even thinking about. And so we offer a 4-year look back and a go forward tertiary monitor program. It's very cost compliant, Medicare cost reporting compliant. And we've been seeing a yield of about a 4 to 6% liquidation rate and an overall lift of 20% to bad debt recoupment. Where does that fit? After early out, after primary and secondary bad debt vendors that you might have in place, even if it was with us, you could, instead of just writing off the account, just place it with our extended monitor campaign. We'll engage our analytical and segmentation process to make sure that we're staying compliant, treating Medicare and non-Medicare the same. And really the benefit is the cash benefit we're seeing is really the non-Medicare accounts that we're able to really collect from. If a patient collected on Medicare, in that, which the chance would be very, very low based on our segmentation process. But if it happened, you could offset that into next year's cost report and still be compliant. And that's a great way to accelerate cash that otherwise wouldn't have been attempted to collect. And finally, our core outcomes are really we're offering a unparalleled patient financial experience and consistency. That's really the key, like Wallace was saying. We're increasing the overall collection rate and point of service collections, pre-service and post-service, uniform engagement, new engagement strategies and payment vehicles that might not have been thought of before. We're improving that patient stickiness and loyalty. We're reducing administrative burden. We're reducing bad debt placement volumes. We're improving bad debt recoupment through our monitor program that otherwise wouldn't have been recouped. And it's a very easy, minimal implementation. All of our benefits, all of our pillars are a la carte, or you can start a staged kind of phased approach and maybe start with the back end through early out and work your way up, or we can start on the front end and work our way back. But I want to make sure we have enough time for everybody to answer some questions that you might have. Once again, thank you all for your time. At the end of the day, we want to kind of going back to the Cheryl story at the very beginning. We want to create, a service that our friends, our families, our communities can be proud of. And that's something that I wake up every day and I have the privilege of working for Frost-Arnett because we're solving this problem. So thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. One thing I want to go back and just touch on, I think right there, sorry, I had my mic on mute, was that when we were talking about the monitor process, one thing, the success that we see there is twofold. Number one, we all realize that patients' financial conditions change. And so a debt that they had a problem paying in the past year to 2 to 3, it may be that their situation now is that they can pay that, and that really provides a great uptick. And what we also see is where because of cost reporting and trying to bring those accounts back, treat them all equally, we see that there's a lot of balance after insurance accounts and balances that really don't have the chance to be worked at a longer cycle. So we see a huge uptake when it comes to that. But I'll stop right there. We've had one question. I know there's some others that's been asked. And so Matthew, the question is this only for hospitals, or do you provide this service for medical offices and or ASCs?
It is for both acute and ambulatory. Absolutely. Yeah, even our patient financing, those ambulatory, since it's, we accept $250 minimum balances, which are still pretty relevant on the ambulatory side as well. And we're seeing a lot of collection success there. But the concept of financial navigation and what we offer is for both. You know,
I remind everyone, if you have any questions, we can either raise your hand and we can turn your mic on, or enter that into the chat. I did want to enter, most of the time, Matthew, from my team's standpoint, we get a lot of questions asked, and one of them you touched briefly on there right at the end, but a lot of people want to ask, they say, hey, this is great. This is, this is touches a lot of different areas in the revenue cycle. How do we start? How do we begin? You had mentioned change management early on in the presentation. Can you expand on there about what we offer to kind of help guide that implementation process?
absolutely. It's our full intent. We realize that y'all have a million things going on, and there's a lot of organizations with implementation, headaches. We bring the implementation experience and the operator experience within our PayJourney consulting division to supply you with an RCM success director that would then lead that implementation and reduce your implementation burden. We can align the stakeholders to the opportunity. We can lead work streams. We've broken down PayJourney in a couple work streams so that we're only involving the staff who really need to be there. And we can develop SOPs, use ones that we've used in the past, scripting that we have best practices. We can assist HR and senior leadership with job descriptions. And reorg and repurposing staff. For example, at a health system last year, or kind of PayJourney, last year, we started with a back end implementation and actually moved their staff to the front end. Their staff loved it. They weren't getting hounded every day on the back end with calls. We moved in and we started with early out with patient financing and digital engagement. And then through our change management, worked with HR and senior leadership to devise an entire roadmap and recommendations report, work with those patients, train them up on the front end to be kind of financial navigators for that health system. And it was very well received. So those are just some of the things we can do there. But at the end of the day, we're, offering change management further guarantees or yields maximum results, right? At a reduced implementation burden for the client.
Perfect. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or type it into the chat area. Another question that we really get mostly, and you did touch on it, Matthew, at the end, was really the a la carte mode. If a person or if someone wants to, they hear the PayJourney story and they want to consider that, then can they start at one point? What does that really look like? If someone's just interested in the financing aspect to begin with, what does that really look like as far as a PayJourney implementation?
Absolutely. We can be super flexible. Each of our pillars of PayJourney is a la carte. So it's really what your need is and what your timeline is and what the desired executive strategy is. If you just want our call center and financial navigators, either on the front end or on the back end through early out, we can absolutely start there. If you want to infuse patient financing, great. If you want to also then look at bad debt monitor, we can turn these on as quickly as needed. And from a phased approach, we like to recommend a phased approach with PayJourney that really allows us to get to know your organization and build the requirements around it, so that we can do this effectively and accurately. And so, you can pick a place to start. We're talking to organizations who want to start on the front end right now with financial navigation. We're talking to organizations that want to start on the back end with early out. And so it might look like early out with patient financing and digital engagement on the back end, infuse some change management to offer financing at time of service, and maybe train some of your staff and then activate bad debt monitor. This is something that can be very easily implemented in 8 to 10 weeks at a maximum, as early as 2 weeks. Really just depends on data. And then maybe once we're live with that, we can look at moving early out earlier kind of think about it, further upstream into the revenue cycle to create that end-to-end financial navigation. We can go pre-service with our financial navigators, collect estimates, prior balance, and roll high balances into financing, and then this estimate update kind of campaign in the middle ground around the insurance adjudication engagement. That's something that we like to kind of reserve for the last spot. That way we make sure the front and the back are well secured.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think probably a good time to talk about just that. I mean, when we're talking to some of our prospects and some of our clients, we really start hearing from them that this is an area that they would like to do, but they don't have the staff to do. When you're talking about communicating any changes in the estimates, kind of what you were talking about, teeing it up or setting the table. Really, I think one thing that we talk about in our patient journey conversations is really one of our goals is to have the questions that the patient might have. We try to proactively answer those questions before that first statement arrives. And so having already kind of set the expectation, communicated what's happened there. And I think that's really a space where people have questions and really would like to do that with their internal staff. Is there something you would want to add to that?
I think you hit the nail on the head, right? It's I think patients today, we all know, are, the cost is high and they just feel like there's not enough engagement and clarity and navigation. So instead of trying to compile all of it on the back end, to the 0 to 120 early out space, we like to start there, but get ahead of it, tee up those conversations pre-service, time of service, and then via the estimate updates, so that when we get to 0 to 120, they don't have any more questions. They've been aligned and they're more willing and ready to pay. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing increased collections in that segment when we do have that opportunity. I just read a Becker's report. 70% of patients would be more willing to pay their final balance if they got an estimate. And so that's, and I think Wanda, who's on the call here, our executive director of EBO, was at a conference last week and saw 50 to 60% of the health systems right now aren't even providing estimates for patients with insurance, right? Because the focus is on the revenue cycle assembly line and pre-service, it's getting all of those financial clearance steps completed. And just from a compliance perspective, giving true, estimates to true self-pay patients. But
Yeah.
there's a ton of opportunity in the industry to tee up those conversations sooner and help augment staff to do it.
Okay, well, thank you, Matthew. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We do understand that your time is important. We would love to set up a time to speak with you more about PayJourney and how that might help your facility or how that might fit. Following today's presentation, we'll be sending out some follow-up emails with more information, and please feel free to reach out to us for any any kind of need that you need from the revenue cycle. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you all. Have a great day.